Dr. Claire Wynne stood alone in the dimly lit control room of XO7, her eyes glued to the holographic display of symbols floating in front of her. The orbital research station, a marvel of human engineering, drifted in the cold expanse of space, far from Earth and even farther from the bustling political and diplomatic struggles of humanity. But for Dr. Wynne, this isolation was a luxury. It was in this solitude that she could focus on her true passion, deciphering the unknown, particularly the strange alien language that had been discovered on a distant moon over a year ago. The year was 2520, and humanity had made significant strides in space exploration. While Earth was an active player in the galaxy's diplomatic arena, it still held little sway compared to the more advanced civilizations that dominated the stars. The Council of Unified Species, CUSA governing body formed by the galaxy's most powerful races, often dismissed humanity as a young and primitive species with limited potential. They regarded Earth as a curiosity, a new member of the galactic community with much to prove. But Dr. Wynne knew better. In her quiet corner of space, she had dedicated her career to finding evidence of alien life, studying forgotten civilizations, and attempting to unlock the mysteries of the universe. It was here on XO7, orbiting a desolate moon in a far corner of the galaxy, that she had uncovered the first traces of something truly extraordinary. The alien archive she had discovered was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. It was not just a series of random data or maps. It was a cryptic language filled with symbols that no one could comprehend. The markings were ancient, older than any known species in the galaxy, and they suggested a culture far more advanced than any race that humanity had yet encountered. Dr. Wynne's goal was simple: decode the archive, understand its significance, and perhaps open the door to technologies that could elevate humanity's place in the galaxy. But the task was daunting. Days blended into nights as Dr. Wynne tirelessly studied the symbols, testing theories and making slow, painful progress. Her only companion was the quiet hum of the station's engines and the flickering lights of the ancient alien archive on her console. Then one evening, as the first hints of dawn touched the station's viewport, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Hidden in the data, beneath layers of encryption, was a prophecy, a chilling message that resonated deep within her bones. It was a phrase that had been buried for millennia, and it sent a shockwave through her mind. "The Forsaken shall rise." Dr. Wynne sat frozen for a moment, her mind racing. The words seemed to echo in her ears. The Forsaken. Could this refer to humanity? Was Earth, with its young and untested civilization, the species described in this prophecy? A species destined to rise above the others, to challenge the ancient powers of the galaxy? Her hands trembled as she examined the archive further, piecing together fragments of information. The prophecy suggested that this forsaken species was capable of outsmarting all others, of rising to a position of power that no one would have ever thought possible. The realization hit her hard. If this prophecy was true, humanity might not just be struggling to survive in the galaxy, it could be on the brink of something far greater, a future that would shake the very foundation of galactic power. Just as the weight of this discovery began to settle in, an alarm blared throughout the station. A warning light flashed on her console. Dr. Wynne's heart raced as she quickly accessed the communication systems. A signal had come from Earth, but it was not the kind of message she had expected. A Prill warship, one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy, had arrived in Earth's orbit. The Prill were a bioengineered species known for their advanced technology and ruthless expansionism. They had dominated vast regions of space for centuries and had little interest in sharing the galaxy with lesser species. Their arrival was a clear statement: humanity's time of peace was over. The Prill had decided to claim Earth as their own, seeing the human species as a potential threat that could rise to challenge their supremacy. Dr. Wynne's mind raced. This was no ordinary diplomatic mission. The Prill were not here for negotiations. They had come for one reason: to subdue Earth before humanity could fulfill the prophecy she had uncovered. The Prill knew that humanity's potential, if realized, would upend the balance of power in the galaxy. They were not willing to take that risk. Suddenly, everything Dr. Wynne had worked for, everything she had uncovered, became infinitely more urgent. The prophecy had spoken of humanity's rise, but she had never imagined it would happen like this. The fate of Earth and the entire galaxy hung in the balance. If humanity was to survive, it would need to confront not just the Prill, but the hidden forces that had always underestimated them. As she watched the Prill warship loom large on the station's monitor, Dr. Wynn felt a mixture of fear and awe. Humanity's moment had arrived not as a peaceful ascent, but as a desperate struggle for survival. The galaxy had always seen humanity as small, insignificant, and unworthy of attention. But now, the Prill had made it a critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and humanity was about to prove them wrong. The Prill warship hung in Earth's orbit, a menacing shadow stretching across the planet's surface. Its colossal size dwarfed the few human ships sent to greet it, a silent reminder of humanity's vulnerability. The tension in the air was palpable, even within the confines of XO7. Dr. Claire Wynn sat in front of her console, the ancient alien archive open before her, her mind racing with the implications of what had just transpired. Moments earlier, the Prill High Commander had sent an encrypted message directly to Earth's leaders. It was not a proposal for peace, nor a diplomatic discussion. It was an ultimatum. Submit to the Prill leadership or face annihilation. The cold, threatening words echoed in Dr. Wynn's mind. But the true gravity of the situation was more than just a military threat. The Prill had come to Earth not for a battle of armies, but for something far more dangerous, a test of intellect and ingenuity. Humanity, still an emerging power in the galaxy, had been thrust into a contest that could determine not just its survival, but its place in the universe. A voice came over the intercom, pulling Dr. Wynn from her thoughts. It was Commander Sloan, the leader of the Earth Defense Council. "Dr. Wynn," she said, "the President is requesting your presence in the briefing room immediately. You're to help formulate a response." Dr. Wynn nodded, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. She had uncovered the prophecy, but now the challenge wasn't just a theoretical test. It was a race against time, a chance for humanity to prove its worth or face extinction. When she arrived in the briefing room, the mood was tense. Several high-ranking officials stood around a large holographic display. "The Prill have issued a challenge," President Hayes began. "A trial, not of arms, but of minds. They believe humanity is a rising threat. What exactly are the terms of the challenge?" Dr. Wynn asked, though she already suspected the answer. "They haven't said, but they've made it clear that failure means death," Hayes continued. "We have no choice but to accept." "I disagree," Dr. Wynn interjected. "If they wanted to annihilate us, they could have done it already. This is a game, a test, but it's not one they want us to win. They're using this to provoke humanity into desperation. This trial, it's a trap." The room fell silent. Dr. Wynn's voice had shaken the Council's confidence. The realization that the Prill might not be testing humanity for the sake of knowledge, but to push them into a conflict was a bitter pill to swallow. "What are you suggesting?" Commander Sloan asked, his tone skeptical. "I suggest we challenge them to the test, but on our terms," Dr. Wynn replied, her voice steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. "Not to fight them directly, but to show them that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our technology or our weapons. It's in our minds. We'll play the game, but we won't let them control the rules." The council members exchanged glances, and though they were unsure of Dr. Wynn's plan, they knew that there was no other option. They reluctantly agreed to proceed with the challenge. ASA the trial began. It became clear that the Prill were indeed controlling the game. The challenges they presented were not just tests of intelligence, they were designed to break human resolve, to push humanity to the brink of collapse. Each puzzle seemed unsolvable, each challenge more impossible than the last. But Dr. Wynn refused to give in. She guided the Earth team with precision, analyzing every aspect of the Prill's tactics and countering with innovative, out-of-the-box solutions. But as the days wore on, Dr. Wynn began to notice something unsettling. A pattern. There were anomalies in the trials, subtle discrepancies in the way the Prill had structured the tests. Some of the data was missing or altered, and the challenges seemed to escalate in ways that suggested the Prill were manipulating them. It wasn't just a contest of intellect anymore. It was a test of survival, designed to wear down humanity and drive them to the edge. One evening, as Dr. Wynn dug deeper into the encrypted alien archive, she uncovered a terrifying truth, something that made her stomach twist with dread. The Prill had known about humanity's potential for centuries. The prophecy she had decoded was not the first time they had encountered humanity's unique attributes. In fact, the Prill had been secretly manipulating human technological advancements, guiding humanity to the brink of this very trial. Dr. Wynn's mind raced. The Prill's true goal was not just to challenge humanity, it was to control humanity before they could fully realize their potential. A faction within the Prill government, led by Commander Arcos, had orchestrated this entire scenario. Arcos and his allies believed that humanity's ascension was inevitable, but rather than let humanity rise naturally, they had decided to control it, to bring them under Prill leadership, while the galaxy was still in turmoil. As this new revelation settled in, Dr. Wynn found herself torn. She could expose the conspiracy, risking humanity's survival by throwing their chances of winning the trial into chaos, or she could align with the Prill faction, offering her support in exchange for access to their advanced technology, a move that could level the playing field. But there was another complication. Political tensions on Earth had reached a boiling point. While Dr. Wynn argued for diplomacy and unity, the Earth Defense Council pushed for a more aggressive stance. The leadership of Earth was divided. Some believed that the only way to survive was to outwit the Prill at all costs, using their technology to fight back and push humanity forward. Others, like Dr. Wynn, feared that doing so might cause humanity to become what it had always despised, a power-hungry empire. And then, as if the situation wasn't already complex enough, strange things began happening in space. Ships began disappearing without a trace, vanishing into thin air. Energy fields fluctuated wildly, causing even the most advanced navigation systems to fail. It quickly became clear that something or someone was manipulating the course of events. But who? Was there a third party involved? Was the Prill challenge just a diversion for something far more dangerous? Dr. Wynn's mind raced as she realized that the stakes were even higher than she had imagined. The real question was not just how to defeat the Prill. It was whether humanity was being guided by unseen forces, and whether those forces had a greater agenda than anyone could understand. Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked up at the stars, uncertain whether humanity's place in the galaxy would be as the rulers they dreamed of, or if they were merely pawns in a much larger game. Dr. Claire Wynn sat in the dimly lit chamber of XO7, the quiet hum of the station, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in her mind. She had spent months locked in a race against time, uncovering the fragments of an ancient alien prophecy hidden deep within the encrypted archives. The prophecy had warned of a species known as the Forsaken, a race destined to rise and change the galaxy forever. Humanity, as she had believed, was to be that species. But she was wrong. The true meaning of the prophecy was something far more complex, something that shook the foundation of everything humanity had ever known. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. As Dr. Wynn connected the final pieces of the puzzle within the archive, a hidden layer of data revealed itself, encoded in a sequence of symbols she hadn't been able to crack before. The symbols, when translated, told the story of the Shalvorn, a race long thought extinct. The Shalvorn had been the original architects of galactic civilization, the creators of the very foundations upon which all other species had built their empires. They were not just an ancient race, they were the ones who had given rise to the galactic order. But there was more. The prophecy had never mentioned a singular species. It spoke, instead of a hybrid, the Forsaken, a blending of humanity's genes and the Shalvorn's ancient DNA. This revelation shattered everything Dr. Wynn had understood about her species' place in the universe. Humanity, it seemed, had always been part of something larger, a genetic continuation, an inheritor of the Shalvorn's legacy. The Prill, with all their power and influence, had known this truth for millennia, suppressing any knowledge of the Shalvorn to maintain their dominance over the galaxy. They feared what such a hybrid species could mean. And now, humanity was on the brink of awakening that very power. The weight of the truth was suffocating. Dr. Wynn stared at the holographic projections of the Shalvorn's ancient symbols, the swirling patterns of a civilization that had come before, and a new, undeniable question formed in her mind. What would humanity do with this knowledge? The stakes were no longer just about surviving the Pearl's trials. Humanity's place in the galaxy, its very future, had been intertwined with forces beyond comprehension. If humanity could unlock the full potential of this hybrid species, it could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But it could also provoke a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was now facing the daunting responsibility of deciding how the entire galaxy would evolve. The question became impossible to ignore. Should humanity seek to dominate the galaxy with its newfound power? Or should they share this knowledge, risking everything for a chance at uniting the galaxy in a new harmonious order? As Dr. Wynn continued to analyze the archives, she was struck by a chilling thought. If the shell-born hybrid humanity's potential future was awakened, would they become the very thing the Prill feared? Would they rise to unify the galaxy, or would they become just another empire, another ruthless conqueror? The prophecy had shown humanity's ascendancy, but it had never clarified whether that rise would lead to peace or to ruin. The knowledge she had uncovered was as much a curse as it was a gift. Time was running out. The Prill were preparing for a final, decisive assault. They had played their hand, confident that humanity would collapse under the weight of their trials. They had underestimated humanity, but they had also seen the glimmers of something they couldn't control. The prophecy spoke of the Forsaken's rise, but what if the Prill could stop it before it ever began? Dr. Wynn's role in this struggle had taken on an even more profound importance. No longer just a scientist or a survivor, she had become the catalyst for a transformation that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The power of the Shellvorn's DNA was a temptation, one that could either elevate humanity or doom it. She had come to realize that her role was no longer simply to survive the Prill's test. Her true mission was far more complex. She was tasked with ensuring that humanity did not lose its soul in the process. The final trial loomed, and humanity was presented with a harrowing choice. The galaxy's future hung in the balance, and Dr. Wynn knew that one wrong move could tip the scales irreversibly. As the leaders of Earth, the Prill, and other alien factions gathered for the final confrontation, Dr. Wynn stood alone, haunted by the magnitude of the decision she had to make. Should she let humanity's natural evolution run its course, allowing them to claim their destiny as a new dominant power? Or should she risk everything, her life, her research, her entire existence, to ensure that humanity embraced the full potential of the hybrid species and sought to forge a new path for the galaxy? In the end, there was only one answer. With a deep breath, Dr. Wynn made the decision that would forever change the fate of all sentient beings. The answer was clear, but it was not one she could live to see. In an irreversible, selfless act, Dr. Wynn chose to fuse her consciousness with the Shellvorn DNA, awakening the latent power within humanity. By doing so, she ensured that the next generation of humans would carry the strength, the wisdom, and the capacity for unity that the Shellvorn had once embodied. The fusion would not just unlock power, it would unlock humanity's true potential, allowing them to transcend the limitations of their past and become something greater than they could ever have imagined. As Dr. Wynn felt her consciousness begin to merge with the ancient knowledge, she sent one final message to the galaxy, her voice carrying through the collective consciousness she had become a part of. The future is not ours alone. It is for all of us. Her last breath echoed through the stars, her body a mere vessel for a transformation that would transcend time and space. And as the first wave of humanity's new legacy began to awaken, the galaxy held its breath. What had once been a fragile species, fighting for survival, was now something far more dangerous. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the harbingers of a new dawn. The galaxy had watched as humanity faced the Prill, and they had seen Earth rise from the depths of perceived weakness to a force capable of reshaping the entire cosmos. The Prill had been defeated, their fleets shattered, their empire crumbling under the weight of the new reality humanity had brought forth. Dr. Wynn's sacrifice, her merging with the ancient power of the Shellvorn, had unlocked a new era for humanity, a legacy that could not be undone. But with victory came not the euphoria of unchallenged dominance, but the solemn responsibility of what came next. Humanity's victory had not been marked by the destruction of the Prill alone. It had been the dawn of a new order, a tentative peace brokered with the galaxy's most powerful races. Earth, once a mere footnote in the cosmic political landscape, was now the heart of a new galactic council. The Prill, broken and humbled, had reluctantly joined the coalition, their ancient thirst for domination tempered by the undeniable strength of the species they had once scorned. Other races, like the Vezir and the Zurzons, though wary, had also bowed to humanity's rise, recognizing that this was no ordinary species. Humanity had become the linchpin in a fragile peace, the fulcrum on which the balance of the galaxy now teetered. But with this newfound power came an ever-present question. Could humanity truly rise to the responsibility of its legacy, or would they fall into the same patterns of arrogance and control that had led to the downfall of the empires before them? Dr. Wynne's legacy loomed large in the minds of all who had witnessed her sacrifice. Her transformation had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve, of the untapped potential within every human being. Yet her absence was felt deeply, especially among those who had worked alongside her. She had been a visionary, a leader, but she was gone now, leaving a void that could not be filled. Those left behind, including the leaders of the new council, found themselves struggling to live up to the ideals that she had embodied. For every step forward humanity made, there were whispers of doubt. Could they, without Dr. Wynne's guidance, maintain the values she had fought for? Or would they succumb to the same temptations of power that had led to the downfall of the Zurzons and Prill? Humanity's victory over the Prill had demonstrated their strength, their resilience, and their ability to transcend the limitations of their past. But the true test had only just begun. It wasn't enough to defeat an enemy. The true challenge lay in maintaining the peace and forging a new path in a galaxy that had long been ruled by greed, war, and conquest. As humanity now sat at the center of the Galactic Council, the weight of their newfound power was a constant, pressing burden. The leaders of Earth had the strength to unite the galaxy, but did they have the wisdom to wield that power without succumbing to its dark side? There was no simple answer. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in question. Could they avoid the same pitfalls of the great empires that had risen and fallen before them? Would they be able to create a future where all species could coexist in peace? Or would they, like the Zurzons before them, become the very thing they had once fought against? As the council convened, the debates were heated and the cracks in the new order began to show. Not all species in the Alliance were as willing to embrace humanity's ideals of peace and unity. Some, like the Prill, had reluctantly accepted their place in the galaxy but were biding their time, waiting for an opportunity to reclaim their lost dominance. Others, more radical factions, viewed humanity's ascension with suspicion, seeing it as just another power grab masked as diplomacy. The Vezir, ever the pragmatists, questioned humanity's ability to maintain control without falling into the same traps as every other power that had tried to rule the stars. The human leaders, many of them veterans of the conflict, were now faced with the difficult task of keeping the fragile peace intact. Some advocated for a more aggressive stance, using humanity's new power to ensure that no species could ever challenge their authority again. Others, remembering the words of Dr. Wynne, "We are the future. But will we be the future we deserve?" sought to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, even at the cost of their own power. But this idealism clashed with the stark reality of galactic politics, where survival often came down to strength, not wisdom. As Earth's leaders gathered to discuss the future, a sense of unease settled over them. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity would prove itself worthy of its new position, or if they would follow the same path as those who had come before. The eyes of the universe were fixed on Earth, and with each passing day, the pressure mounted. Humanity was no longer the underdog. But the question lingered, would they become the rulers the galaxy feared, or the saviors they hoped for? Despite their best efforts to stay true to Dr. Wynne's vision, the cracks in the new alliance deepened. Power struggles within the council escalated, and the temptation to wield their newfound strength for personal gain grew stronger with each passing day. The ideal of a peaceful galaxy was becoming harder to hold on to. The tension between unity and domination, between peace and control, became the central conflict for humanity's leadership. The galaxy was no longer a simple battleground. It was a web of shifting allegiances, secret plots, and hidden agendas, all of which threatened the fragile peace humanity had fought so hard to establish. In the quiet moments, when the debates paused and the leaders of the council retreated to their chambers, the same question haunted them all: will we become the future we deserve? It was a question that echoed not just in the hearts of humanity's leaders, but in the minds of every species that had once feared or dismissed humanity. Would Earth's rise be a beacon of hope, or would it merely herald the dawn of yet another galactic empire, one that would eventually fall, like all the others before it? The future of the galaxy was no longer in the hands of any single race. It was in the hands of humanity. The choices they made in the coming years would determine whether they became the galaxy's greatest hope or its greatest threat. The path ahead was uncertain, and the galaxy waited, holding its breath. Humanity had won. But would they be the rulers they feared or the rulers the galaxy had always needed?